Jo, just sort of start off your overall thoughts on this draw and just I guess your initial reaction when you saw it sort of play out how it did.
Yeah, look, obviously it is a tough draw, but one that's got loads of opportunities and that we're pretty excited about.
And in terms of your England, like I think Marley Packer after the sort of draw said sort of it adds to the magic of the that opening fixture with your history with it. Like when you took this job over, this sort of idea of playing England, what could potentially be the opening game, like did that cross your mind? And have you had time to reflect on how special that would be?
Um, yeah, look, obviously, yeah, it's exciting to be playing England and to be playing like a home nation in their home World Cup. I think that's really exciting, and we know that the crowds over in England are going to be huge, and it's going to be the biggest World Cup yet. So all of that just adds to the excitement.
I guess the other sort of big nation there, USA, just probably slipped into that group. I'm not sure you expect them or not, that sort of third band. How motivating is that to sort of get sort of one back on them after how that sort of Melbourne game had sort of transpired?
Yeah, look, that was Pac 4 was tough for us, wasn't it? And we had so little prep going into that. So as a squad, we've changed a lot over the last 10 months. And as of they and we've got another 10 months now until the World Cup. So, as long as we keep the growth going like we are, then we're a pretty different team now than what we were 10 months ago.
Jo, it's Mel Woods from AAP. So opportunities when you sort of mentioned in your opening comments, can you talk to us a little bit more about what you see there?
Yeah, so like I think if we end up with England in the opening game, that's huge, isn't it? Opening a World Cup and an opportunity to play the home nation, the number one team. There's going to be a lot of pressure on them, and that's a big opportunity for us.
Do you see that, like obviously England will probably start favourites and then, New Zealand are the reigning World Cup winners. But given the results of the WXB competitions, with Canada doing well and obviously you've beaten Canada in the past, does it kind of feel like it is quite wide open?
Yeah, and I think that's what's so exciting about this World Cup. And like you said, looking at all the WXV results 3-1, 2, and 3, this is going to be the most competitive World Cup there's ever been. Some of those results that have come through over the last month have just made this World Cup such an exciting one. And I think whatever pool we ended up in was gonna be challenging. Like South Africa are on the up. That's gonna be a tough game for whoever faces them. And like all of the teams now, whichever pool we ended up in was going to be a tough one. There's no easy pools anymore.
Some of the Sevens girls have mentioned about their interest in playing in the World Cup. Have you sort of had any follow through on that? And I guess would you need to see them play Super Rugby, to really consider them for the tournament?
Yeah, and we've always said that is a conversation that is happening. It was a conversation we spoke about a few months ago in terms of an expression of interest, and there are a few that are interested. So now we're back from WXV. We'll start those conversations and kind of map out what that looks like for them and for us because it's important. We've really grown and developed as a squad as a 15. So how they are integrated into our program is really important.
Jo, just on
Joe. Oh, sorry.
I was gonna say just on WXV1, like sorry, WXV2, like coming home and being the first Australian coach to lift a sort of piece of silverware. Like, is that the magnitude of what happened over the past 3 weeks sunk in yet, and just how special that is to this group?
Yeah, it's really special, as you know, Nath. We've had our challenges over the last few months, and actually, even just right up until we went to WXV, we had injuries. We're losing the people like Piper Duck. People were like, "Oh my goodness, like that's a tough loss going into this comp." But what it did was mean players like Boo just massively stepped up. People like Tuller stepped up, and we had this new young group really take their opportunities, which was so exciting to see. So it was kind of rewards for the effort that the girls have put in over the last 10 months to come away and to get those wins.
And you talk about sort of competitiveness of sort of women's rugby at this stage, like sort of rounding out your group. You've got Samoa, who I mean defeated Australia, right, a couple of months ago. Like I know that you probably wouldn't have seen that sort of in this potential of playing Samoa like it's sort of transpired, but because that Australia A game almost sort of was just worked out perfectly in the sense of you know what to expect with Samoa as opposed to maybe them being a bit more of a untested prospect coming into next year.
Yeah, most definitely. And that was a really important game. Obviously, even more important now, we know we've got Samoa, but also in terms of giving players an opportunity, those youngsters an opportunity. And we ended up pulling two of them across into our WXV squad after the way they performed in that game too.
Yeah. Hi, Joe. Obviously, the draw being live on the BBC over here in England. Just
Yeah.
how big is that kind of being on primetime TV for women's rugby?
Yeah, it was massive, wasn't it? And yeah, we got up early to watch it, and like it's so amazing for the game to see that on Prime TV and to get that sort of exposure is just awesome for the game, and to see all the captains on there as well, and it's just really special.
Perfect. Cheers, Joe. Thank you.
So you're obviously intimately involved with England women's rugby and all aspects of it. Can you just explain why they're so successful, why that team has been so successful? I think they're now, this insanely high ranking. Can you just go in and give us an idea of why they're so good?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of reasons. One, they put a lot of support and resources into their pathways. So they've got a really strong kind of pathway coming through. They're under 18s, they've got under 20s, they're playing regular fixtures with those teams now. And that kind of experience for when they come to senior rugby is huge. And then on top of the pathway, they've got PWR, which is arguably the best league in the world, and they've got their players playing in that week in week out against obviously other international teams. So I think the pathway that coupled with PWR has kind of really made them a huge threat.
And how will you, I mean, you obviously have to start planning for this. How will you psychologically prepare for that game with your team? Coming up against a team that very rarely loses. You have to go in believing you can win, I suppose. But how do you psychologically prep for that game?
Yeah, and like the last time Australia played them was at the last World Cup, and actually it was a pretty tough game, and Australia performed well in that. So Australia aren't a team that obviously England have played a lot. So that comes with challenges for them also, because they play a bit like us. They play the same teams quite a bit. So and like you said, it's that belief piece for us. All the pressure, especially if we play them in that opening game, is going to be on them. Huge expectation on a team that hasn't lost going into this home World Cup. The pressure is on them, and for us it's an opportunity to go out and to really express ourselves as a team, and that's what we'll be taking into that.
Just lastly from me on that belief piece, being in WXV2, obviously you guys, were aiming to be in the number one comp, but have you sensed that, the benefits of those victories that you managed, consistent victories that will and might have lit something within the girls that they really needed?
Yeah, 100%. And I think after the dust has settled, after not making WXV1, actually acknowledge the fact that this is probably not a bad thing for us right now to be in WXV2, and also acknowledging the fact that WXV2 is a real challenging comp as well, with all the teams in there now. Like the majority are full-time, and they have been for a while. They're really established sides, so it was always going to challenge us, but then to be able to be challenged and come away with the wins for this group was really important, because they are a young group, so trying to kind of build that belief in them is key.
So I'll keep going. What's the plan then leading into the World Cup? Have you got sort of a series of camps and that sort of thing? Will you be looking? Tell me, before the last one, the girls were together for a couple of months beforehand. Are you aiming to try and, if not full time, semi full time, the girls leading into the World Cup?
Yeah, so initially we're going to have a camp in November, which will ultimately kickstart the season for the players going into Super W. We'll be in a position now where we'll be going around and rotating ourselves as coaches around all the Super W teams, so that we're in and kind of working alongside those teams and supporting the girls as well. And then obviously then it will very much then become camps into prep for Pac 4, which will be a great opportunity, and then camps throughout there with some lead up warm up games as well.
I guess, Joe, just reflecting on the year, I mean, you look at the way it started, probably, winless Pac 4 leading into then those 2 losses with Wales and Ireland. What do you sort of notice in sort of that psyche change when now you can sort of reflect it and see the sort of results that has just changed from that European tour to South Africa that's all of a sudden delivered these results and made you a sort of a team to watch this World Cup?
Yeah, I think it was that sort of the belief piece. We put a lot of emphasis on the players as people and that culture, and that's something that we've worked really hard on, and our values as a squad. And I think that the fact we went through some adversity and it was challenging kind of just pulled the group together, because they could see internally and we could see the growth internally. Regardless of the sort of results, we were growing as a side, and you could see that in our S&C schools, in our stats, in our analysis stats, in the way they conducted themselves. So, and the fact that they stuck with that and united as a group then meant we got the results that we deserved.
Just on that culture piece, like when you've been big on this 1 to 30 sort of motto, when you then have the potential for sevens players to come in, like how do you go about balancing bringing in those full-time athletes from the sevens pathway, but not damaging the culture that you've built over the past 12 months?
Yeah, it's really important and that we get it right. And I think just being really transparent with the group was what that process looks like, because ultimately we want to make sure that we're the best that we can be come the World Cup. And if that includes some of the sevens players, it includes some of the sevens players. And I said to the 15s girls, I'll be transparent with them around what that process looks like. And that's really important with the players.
Jo, can I just ask you one about the Rebels, cutting them from the competition? Obviously someone like Ash Masters has become the most capped Wallaroo and that, but do you have any, the girls that I guess could possibly be in contention for the World Cup, are they going to have to relocate? I mean, I imagine because a lot of them aren't full-time players, or how do you see that sort of all working, I guess?
Yeah, so there's obviously currently there was currently 2 from that were in our WXV squad that were from there, and I know one of them's already settled with another club, and Ash is in talks at the moment. So, and obviously all we can do is make sure we support them in that process, because it is a challenging time for them. Without a doubt, it's a tough thing for them to go through. So as a squad and with the Wallaroos, it's just supporting them to make sure that they find the right club.
Do you feel then, I guess Ash is maybe an example that there can be success without the Rebels, because she was already a great player coming through, I suppose, club rugby here, and so in terms of pathways, that those players won't get lost. I know Melbourne Storm are ramping up their own women's pathways as well. Do you have any fears about some of the potential representative players being lost to the game?
Yeah, look, obviously, I know that there are conversations happening, and to try and make sure that doesn't happen. And I'll be honest, I'm not across all of that right now. So, but I'm kind of, confident that people are really aware of that, and they don't want to lose those players from that area, because, like you say, the likes of Ash Masters, it's to see her and the way she's performing, you don't want to lose those sort of players.
Just one more for me, Joe. Just you sort of talk about coaching staff moving around. Are they locked in for next year full time, and if so, how does that help just sort of this cycle of planning and making sure that you just keep that consistent messaging throughout?
Yeah, so so Chris and Sam and obviously Sean, from an S&C perspective, are all on board full time now. So our plan is to be rotating around and making sure that we're out at super clubs.
Just having that full time now, just what can that sort of give you that you might not have had, last year or as a program sort of the past couple of years?
Yeah, well, like I say, it gives us an opportunity to be on the ground with the players. So rather than just not seeing them now until we come together in prep for Pac 4, we can be out and about and working with those girls on an individual and a group basis within their areas.